Good morning, I'm Tom, that's Rich, and we are the 100 Club. And after another frantic week in the IPL, we're here to round up the cricketing world as it stands. Rich, good morning, how you doing?
I am genuinely fantastic today, Tom. It's
Glad to hear it.
A week left of the IPL regular season, then we go into the knockouts and then straight into the World T20. It's a good time.
It is, and it's been a good week of cricket. A slightly disjointed tournament, we've spoken about that before, but actually the quality of the cricket this week has been outstanding. I think I hope you'd agree.
The greatest tournament ever, according to Danny Morrison. I mean, where do we stand on Danny Morrison, Tom?
If I thought saying hashtag before any word was commentary, then I'd like him. I don't.
I think 90% of the time, I'm not a huge fan, but every now and again, he just sort of sprinkles a bit of analysis in that sort of brings me back. But he's no Pommy and Bangla, that's for sure.
I'm all about Sonal Gavaskar. Yeah, he's all right. Should we have a look at the table? Because it's hotting up, as you say, with the last week approaching.
It is.
What do you make of it?
Good time to be a CSK or a Delhi Capitals fan, safely into the eliminators, and they actually play each other next. So what would be a preview of that first v second eliminator that will take place next week.
Well, will it, or will they just rest players?
I'm not sure. I mean, they're sort of canny operators at CSK, so I don't know how much they'll give away. And even if they do play sort of the first choice, how much of sort of the secrets sauce will be given away? Probably not very much. You know, they know how to operate at the latter end of tournaments. That's
maybe I'm being cynical. There is quite a lot to be gained from qualifying top.
Indeed. Yeah. And then we've got really the shootout, haven't we, for the fourth spot? I mean, RCB look fairly. I don't think they're mathematically in, but I think they're fairly comfortable. They're in third.
Yeah, so they've got Punjab Kings today, I think, is it?
That's right. That'll be the match 11 o'clock this morning. Yeah, big game. 4th through 7th. And I think the big story really, as we went into the second half of the tournament, was Mumbai were sat in 4th, weren't they, going into the second half of the tournament? And they've had a very poor few weeks, whilst KKR have come up the other way with sort of 3 wins since the restart, put themselves in 4th place. And some of those big wins early on, by, what was it? They won one game within 10 overs. That's made a huge impact on their net run rate. And they finish off against Sunrisers Hyderabad next, the whipping boys, and then finish with Rajasthan Royals. So you could say they're probably odds on at the minute to claim that 4th spot.
Yeah, I fancy them. They're looking, as I said, I think last week, they're looking like a form team at the moment. There were some surprising results, though. And as you say, four teams, all on 10, playing for that 4th place. Anything could happen. And I think we saw a bit of that in some of the games this week. So if we look about, if we have a look through what we liked or otherwise from the games this week, maybe starting with the games yesterday, because we saw in the second game yesterday, Rajasthan Royals beating top team CSK by 7 wickets on an absolute belter of a pitch. And that has absolutely transformed the Rajasthan chances of making that 4th spot, I think.
Yeah, I think it looked like CSK were going to get up to something sort of 150, 160-ish. But I think they scored 90 off the last 6 overs. Gaikwad got his ton. Fantastic innings. He's been such good form this second half. And the other big one for CSK that is Jadeja in that finisher role has been absolutely brilliant. Take that game 38 when they beat KKR by 2 wickets. That was again Jadeja going ballistic at the end to take them home. But yesterday something just clicked for Rajasthan. The batting just worked, and they did it so easily. They had 15 balls left, didn't they?
Yes, it was something like that. I mean, 7 wickets was the margin. It was all down to me. I mean, let's not take anything away from Gaikwad's innings, because fantastic. Now wearing the orange cap proudly around in the outfield with over 500 runs in the tournament. But then that power play from Rajasthan, I think they hit 81 in the power play for 1.
That's right. They were 81 for 1 in the power play. It was an absolute assault. Evan Lewis, 27 off 12. Jaiswal again impressive, 50 off 21. Yeah, and then Dubé got some runs as well. So very impressive chase by the Royals.
It was, and Sam Curran and Josh Hazlewood were on the receiving end somewhat.
It was a good afternoon for Tim Mills, I think, looking ahead to the World T20 in that respect. Yeah, Sam Curran went for 55 off his 4 overs, so not an afternoon for him to enjoy.
No, David William, my book anyway. The previous game that day. The previous game that day actually was also an interesting one. Again, perhaps not a shock in this case, but Mumbai Indians look in real trouble, having lost there to the Delhi Capitals.
They do. I think we mentioned it on the last episode. The Delhi Capitals bowling lineup really continues to impress, and that was the key in that win yesterday. Axar Patel, Avesh Khan, and Andre Nortje amongst the wickets. Yeah. It wasn't a particularly challenging total that MI set, and Delhi Capitals made a bit of hard work of it. I think they were sort of 93 for 6 at one stage. Yeah, but it was Shreyas Iyer and Ravi Ashwin who took them home. But
and Hetmeyer as well did all right.
Yeah, Hetmeyer had a little cameo there as well, but it's just not quite clicked for Mumbai. I mean, they did have that win in match 42 against the Punjab Kings. Yeah, but that game in 39 where they were well short of RCB with 165 for 6. It's not what we expect from Mumbai Indians at the latter stage of an IPL.
No, and that's 4 out of the last 5 lost. I think they had 3 on the bounce. They'd lost in the UAE since the restart, and then they had that win there at match 42 against the Punjab Kings, as you say. But I'm not confident for them. They don't appear to be firing. But no. As you've said before, never write them off, perhaps.
Yeah.
Go on. Yeah.
Well, a few other points to throw in from our perspective here. As a 100 club, George Garton made his debut in match 43 for RCB. He took 1 for 30 in that victory for them. Yeah. And I would also point out the Sunrisers Hyderabad finally managed to get a win in match 40. They brought Jason Roy in for that game, his debut for Sunrisers. Sorry. And he scored 60 odd in that game in a sort of to win. Well, not win the match for them, but go a long way to chasing down that total. So quite impressed with those contributions from the Englishmen. But really, for me, Tom, the story of these 10 games has been how much the Indian domestic players have been in the starring roles throughout. It hasn't been necessarily the overseas stars or sort of the Indian kind of Test one day team. It's really been a lot of the uncapped domestic players who've shone. The likes of Ravi Bishnoi for Punjab Kings, the leg spinner, has been fantastic. We mentioned Gaikwad earlier.
Harshal Patel.
For
bowling absolute storm.
Yeah, Avesh Khan, we talked about him a little bit. Yep. Jaiswal as well for for Rajasthan Royals. Yeah, so quite just shows the strength and depth of Indian cricket at the minute, that these guys are winning matches for their teams.
Absolutely, and I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. I'm a big fan of players like Sanju Samson, who's now being rewarded with a captaincy as a young age. I think there's a problem for the Indian Premier League sometimes is when they focus too much on the big name, sort of fading stars, that actually it takes away from some of the quality of the cricket. And I like seeing the youngsters playing well, getting game time, showing their talent. And I think almost you've seen the flip side of it this week in Chris Gayle. Withdrawing from the tournament to go and get some rest up for the World Cup, but absolutely no form at all.
Yeah, and again, I think was being picked on reputation more than form. And I think the Punjab Kings look a better side without him, honestly. I mean, the challenge as well for Chris Gayle is that he's almost a liability in the field now, because you have to hide him somewhere. And a game of such small margins, having to have a passenger in the field at this level is actually quite tricky. So if he's not contributing with the bat, and he's not really bowled much this season either, we always thought of Chris Gayle as a very useful spinner, but if he's just there at the top of the order, hitting a run at ball, then probably best on a beach in the Caribbean recuperating.
Well, I'm not going to write him off either. Let's see what the World Cup does. But I think he is unfortunately in the sunset of his career. I think that is fair to say. And maybe I'm being harsh.
Maybe so. I mean, he's still got a lot to offer and still a fantastic player in his pomp to watch.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. Loved it over the years. So whilst we're on this topic, I thought, Rich, would you like to do a little bit of who's hot and who's not as we approach the World Cup?
Absolutely. I think it's a key narrative, especially for overseas fans of the IPL. We're watching our players in that tournament, thinking a little bit ahead to the World Cup and thinking, okay, well, who's in form, who's not in form? How's that going to impact selection?
So I don't think you'll take long to work out whether they're hot or not when I show you the pictures. But I'm going to bring up actually 2 honourable mentions straight up, actually, for players who aren't going to the World Cup, but who might have been going, in Glenn Maxwell and Faf du Plessis, who are both playing really well in the IPL. Okay, so these players are going to the IPL. What do you reckon? Owen Morgan, hot or not, Rich?
it's not been a great month or two for Owen Morgan. I mean, he always looks completely, unfazed out in the field. He had that little sort of run-in with Ravi Ashwin last week as well. If I could point out, I'm completely with Ravi Ashwin on this. I really don't like this whole thing in cricket about players having to self-police and sort of the standards of the game. For those who haven't seen it, the incident was the ball ricocheted off I think the batter at the other end. I can't remember who it was. Ashwin took the overthrow without realizing it. I think it was Rishabh Pant maybe.
Yeah.
Without realizing that had happened, and then Morgan and Southey had a go at him because it's sort of against the spirit of the game to run an overthrow in that way. But for me, let the umpires decide. If it's legal, let the players do it. But anyway, that wasn't Morgan's finest hour, but it's his batting that's the real issue. Since the restart, 7, 8, 0, 2, 16 runs, averaging at 4.
I've got him at 17. I've got him at 17.
You got 17 runs in 5 matches.
Get your calculator out.
No, that's what I said. 7, 8, 0, 2.
Okay.
No, that's what I just said.
Okay. I thought you said
7 plus 8 is 15. Add 2.
Not the point. Nothing over in double figures. That's the important point.
Indeed. And the issue is you've got limited spots in the England T20 side. They are ranked number 1 in the world. And you have a guy down at CSK who is playing well, Moeen Ali. He is batting in the top 3 for CSK, scoring runs. And we saw in the summer that he is a very good captain of the Birmingham Phoenix. He led that side incredibly well. I don't think Morgan adds enough value as a captain alone to justify a place in the side. So I would like to see Moeen skip aside, Bairstow come in as the additional bat, have Roy, Butler, Bairstow, Moeen, Livingston, and at the moment, unless he can do something in the last 2 games, I don't think Morgan starts the T20 World Cup for me.
That would be a huge call. And I don't think it's the call that the ECB are going to make. I'm going to be, realistically, I don't think they're going to make that call. I mean, Kolkata Knight Riders, I think their fans have been calling for the removal of Owen Morgan for some time. They don't see the captaincy ability there. I tend to agree with you. I think, but the reality is, I think Morgan is going to start. And I think that's actually a handbrake on England's chances for the World Cup.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree that they will pick the conservative option. I think they will reward Morgan for tournaments past. He did win the World Cup in 2019, but I think if you're going to pick on form, and not just form, I think the critical thing as well is how well Moeen captained the Phoenix in the summer. How attractive a side they were to watch. So I think, and you also have in that squad, you have Butler's captain before. Billings, if he comes in, Billings took Kent to the T20 Blast title. Was very impressive in his captaincy. So you have other options for the captaincy. Plus, in a T20 game with so much of it decided beforehand by the analysts and by the coaches, is it so critical, to have that captain on the field in a T20 game? Not so sure.
Depends how many SEAT strategic timeouts you get, Mitch. Up next, okay, KR Rahul.
Yes.
I struggle to say whether he's hot or not because he's always good. I think when I was writing this out, I realized actually it's not hot. He's just consistent, magnificently consistent. But if he can come into a streak of form, I think he is right now. So since the IPL restarted, averaging 39.5 with the bat, that's pretty good, right?
It is. And it's sort of one of those times where the average is rather than, halfway between what he, hot or not. In this case, it feels like he gets 39 every time he plays. That feels about right. And had that very impressive knock the other day against KKR, where he ended up with 67 or 55. Didn't quite make it over the line, but was the spine of the innings, as you said there. But also the impressive thing there was the way he paced it. So batting in the power play with Mayank Agarwal, he was quite happy to knock it around whilst Agarwal was the aggressor. And then when it looked like sort of they needed to get the ante, then he was able to sort of bring out some of his 6 hitting options. So I think that's the kind of impressive thing for me. It's the way he kind of paces his innings and reacts to what's happening at the other end.
He's a real cricketing brain. He's a team that a player that India will definitely build around. I think it's the kind of player that England might want Darren Milan to be, or Australia wants Steve Smith to be in there. The spine of that team. And this is to sort of drive home that consistency thing. In all of his T20 internationals, A strike rate of 142, not to be sniffed at from batting where he does, but also at an average of 39.92, pretty close to where he is right now. But
he does.
He's absolutely doing the job.
And he gives a pretty stoical, keeps a stoical face as he watches some barely shoddy fielding from the Punjab Kings.
Yeah, one day though.
Terrible in the field. So that's a Punjab Kings fan.
Yeah. Okay, should we have another one?
Yes.
What do you think of the form of David Warner?
Oh, so sad, isn't it, to see David Warner struggling? Yeah, such a well-liked man in international cricket. No,
I wouldn't say it's all down to his sandpapering.
I don't know. I've never met David Warner. He's probably a perfectly nice chap. He is not in good form. He's not played internationally this year. As you said, just 2 runs in 2 matches. But even before that, he was actually scoring a reasonable amount of runs. I think he had 195 runs in the tournament to date. But he was only going at just over a run a ball, which is not good enough in modern T20 when you're opening the batting.
Yeah.
And it's not like Australia don't have options. We talk back to players we've watched this summer in England, and Josh Inglis was called into the squad. He's been very destructive at the top of the order. He had 2 centuries, I think, this summer in T20. So it's one of those things. Players get older, new players come in, and that's just sort of the march of Father Time. So I think David Warner will be struggling to get into the Australia side.
He's got time to rebuild himself, but I think the more worrying thing for me at the moment is actually some of the possible off-field stuff that's going on at the minute. It's clear he's not a happy bunny. He's not even travelling to the Sunrisers games at the minute, and there's some cryptic Instagram messages going around. I don't know if you saw them. He's just not in a good place, I don't think. And so at the moment, you wonder about throwing him into the glare of a World Cup position.
Yeah, and we've talked about it before. It's this issue of players being away for a long time from friends and family. You always got that issue of the fact they're in bubbles, not necessarily have the freedoms they might do otherwise. I'm not sure situation in terms of whether the family with them at the minute in the UAE. I don't think they are. So I think it all takes a toll. It's not they're not just robots playing the game. And but you're right. What I think the biggest thing is sometimes you see a player who's out of form and they're finding ways to get out. But when you see them hitting their shots, you think, okay, well, that's the player I remember. So like Gale might get 6 and be out, but it sort of hits a monster 6. Warner hasn't even looked like the Warner of old when I've seen him in the last few innings.
No, I think he needs a bit of a reset. Okay, he might get it. Let's talk about someone who's had a bit of reset and is finding perhaps the form of their career at the lovely age of 37. Dwayne Bravo.
The West Indian Darren Stevens, Dwayne Bravo.
That's a bit hard. He's been in fantastic form, particularly the IPL since restarting. 8 for 66 across, I think it's just 3 innings because he got rested yesterday. Good stuff.
Less than a run a ball as well. I mean, that's the critical thing there. So 3 for 25, 3 for 24, 2 for 17. He's made some contributions with the bat as well.
Yeah, not so much in the IPL, but also in the CPL.
In the CPL as well. I think the first game back, I think he had a 20-odd, which was sort of, but obviously CSK have been going so well at the top of the order, they haven't really needed him as much. But as you say, influential, just a very canny cricketer, knows what he's doing, adjusts to the surface very quickly. It's been quite interesting. You've seen quite a marked difference between the way Dubai, Abu Dhabi and Sharjah have played. Sharjah has tended to be the lowest scoring of the grounds. Abu Dhabi the highest. I did see one comment saying that as it cools down slightly in the UAE as going to the next month, that the pitches might retain a little bit more moisture, might quicken up a little bit as we go into the next phase. But the reason I bring that up is I think his skill as a bowler is to understand the surface he's bowling on straight away and modify what he bowls accordingly. So very canny operator, and really good to see him doing well.
He's bowling around 80% slower balls at the minute because, as you say, he knows what he's doing. And I think what he proves to me in recent form is he's got a maturity that so often, I'm afraid to say, sometimes we don't see in the West Indian stars. And I think they'll really benefit from having him in that team. So to bring the experience, I think we've heard Josh Hazelwood talk about it in the last week or two, saying about the positive influence that Dwayne Bravo is having on him as a performer. He's had some good performances yesterday aside. I'm excited about seeing Dwayne Bravo continuing on into the World Cup.
Yeah, and it's easy to fixate on the explosive batting lineup that the West Indies will bring to the World Cup. But there's also sort of a very canny set of bowlers there as well. So, as typified by Bravo.
Absolutely. So it's not been such a busy week in the rest of the world for cricket. Clearly, we had the 5th ODI for England and New Zealand. Was a bit of a drubbing, to be fair, with the series all over. Tammy Beaumont hitting a century last Sunday.
Yeah, we have to give a shout out to Tammy Beaumont for a fantastic 100 at our home ground of Canterbury. But you're right, it was a bit of a damp squib. England's posting 347, which was their 6th ever highest total, and I think it was the highest New Zealand have ever conceded. So, good for England.
It was. So what we have had, just to sort of bring this show to a conclusion, as it were, is some news on what the schedule looks like next year. We have some big news coming up in the IPL on the 25th of October with the next 2 franchises being announced. The focus for those being on the Hindi-speaking regions of India up in the north and east. And I think Ahmedabad looking like a favourite out of these 6 applicants. But we'll get to them when they're announced, perhaps, unless you've got a strong opinion.
Well, I mean, Ahmedabad would make sense. You've got the Modi Stadium there, 100,000 capacity. And you did have Gujarat Lions in for a couple of years before they dropped out. So I don't know who the other team would be in the north. I mean, maybe somewhere Uttar Pradesh, huge population, doesn't have a team at the minute. There's potential up that sort of way.
I'm hoping for Garam Masala because it's such an amazing ground, a beautiful setting. But that's probably not the criteria they're going to be using. It's going to be the number of thousands of crore being offered. I would be
put it this way, I would be very surprised if Ahmedabad doesn't get a team.
Yeah, let's put it that way. So let's have a look instead at the English schedule announcements for this week. And not all of these are 100%. Some of this is conjecture, but it looking like the following are shaping up. And we've spoken a lot on this program podcast about how English scheduling is terrible. So have they made enough choices here? So the 100 in the Royal London Cup, the ODI format, will run concurrently again next year through August. Can we say that's okay for a second year?
Yeah, it's okay. I think the Royal London Cup, as it stands at the minute, has to run concurrently with the 100. Otherwise, the county players who aren't involved in the 100 basically have a month off in the middle of summer. Don't think that quite works. It becomes a developmental tournament. The question is, whether we can do something else in terms of a shorter ODI tournament. Sort of people have talked about like kind of the FA Cup of cricket, type thing. Bring in all the minor counties as well. Sort of have
on the way
60 odd all the way up and just do it as a straight knockout through the summer. I think that's a reasonable idea that won't take up a lot of time in the schedule. I like the fact that the T20 Blast is a bit more contained now, so it will finish pre-100. It will go all the way through. And then the international cricket comes in as well, and good to see as well that we're playing the Netherlands.
So three ODIs against the Netherlands in late June. I think that is good. I think they'll be shuffling around the dates a little bit, but it won't be the 18. Let's be brutally honest. It'll be a sort of not England A. You know what I mean? But it won't be like the first choice team, I don't think. But it'll be a chance actually for some of those players to come up and show a bit in a good quality competition.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, the critical thing about the county championship matches to be held in July is not that people think there's not enough county championship. It's that they were annoyed that there wasn't county championship leading into the test series. So I can see how they've answered that. So before the first test, but there's still a big gap there. And 17th of August, that is quite late because I think the India test series this summer started, what was it? It was basically the first week.
1st of August. 1st of August.
Yeah,
somewhere around
of August. So this is almost 3 weeks later. Yeah. It means that there's time to fit in that additional one-off test against India, which is supposedly definitely happening now. But we shall see.
And what I haven't put all of the England fixtures that are announced. And I think the South Africa Test series represents the last of the fixtures in the schedule that they've announced so far. So everything up to the end of August, beginning of September is pretty much set. And as you say, there's the India Test, there's a white ball series against India in there. I think that's at the end of July, just dovetailing neatly with the start of the 100. I don't know if they're trying anything there. Trying to be too conspiratorial. Maybe that we might one day see the BCCI release some players for the 100 or something like that. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see the winner of the 100 play the winner of the IPL. That'd be good.
The Super Championships. Okay, Rich, that's been That's been a decent canter through. A lot of IPL business to look forward to this week with the eliminators and the qualifiers up from next Sunday. So we'll be looking forward to those, along with a good smattering of international cricket this week. So hopefully you're going to be able to keep an eye on it.
I will do my best.
Good. And we hope you can too as well. If you have any questions, stick them down below in the comments. Whack us a like and a subscribe. We do really appreciate that. And otherwise, we'll see you here soon on the 100 Club.
Bye.